Hello and welcome to Beyond the Horizon for episode 7, which is the Bible Code. I'm hoping you can hear me well enough. I'm just moving the mic a little bit closer so you can hear me choking to death, which may well happen because I was stuffing my face before coming on here, which is why we're a little bit late. And and I don't know if I'm allergic to something I just ate, but I've been coughing a lot. So watch this space. This could be the live stream I die on. Luckily, I have someone, if I bring him in quick enough, who can take over. Old media guy is waiting in the wings. Before I drag him on, because he's got so many interesting things to talk about. He is Mr. Maths, and he'll be able to explain everything that I cannot, which is a great deal in the context of this video. I should say two more things. There will be a bit of a gap before the next Beyond the Horizon because one, my computer half died. I'm using it right now, but it's not exactly on its best behavior right now. Secondly, the studio you see me in now is going to be unfortunately employed for other people and other uses for the next 2 weeks. So there will almost certainly be a 2-week gap before the next Beyond the Horizon can be aired. But I have plenty of Beyond the Horizon material to get through. So never fear, it will reappear. And with that nice rhyming ending for my intro, I'm going to bring old media guy in. Here we go.
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine. I'm glad
No
to
weird
see
noises?
you to death.
You're a little bit quiet. Hang on. That's just the way I
Whoa!
normally test the microphone. Is that okay?
I could hear that sneeze very well indeed.
Brilliant. I can also just about make you out as well. Well, I might turn the volume up a little bit.
Really? I don't know what I'm doing differently here.
It might be. Remember, I just had to. I replaced the hard drive on that laptop, so I just had to reinstall everything. So nothing is where I had it before.
Oh, right.
Oh, you're louder, Lana. That's good.
Okay, yep. I think I know what the problem was.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, I fixed it.
Brilliant. Yeah. But it may not have been you. It could easily be any number of things that I haven't been able to set up exactly the same as before. And the horrible thing is, I'm going to have to do it all again because this is a crappy hard drive, an old school non-SSD drive I had to stick in there. The laptop currently sounds like a wheezing old man because of that.
Yeah.
And
See, do you remember when I first heard that noise? I said it could be a hard drive. You're like, nah, it couldn't be the hard drive.
well, it wasn't because that hard drive was the SSD, which just blew up. So I'm waiting for another SSD to come in the post, but that means I'm going to have to do the whole resetting up all over again. It's just going to be a pain in the backside. But anyway, that's not the point. So yeah, sad news. 2 weeks without Beyond the Horizon. Can you cope?
I can cope. Are you going to install Linux Mint?
Oh, it'll be the same Mint. I mean, it's the same Mint now. And it'll still be the unsupported old version as well. It'll be 18 back on it again.
See, I think you should do Linux Mint 21 with XFCE as your desktop. I think that would be sufficient.
Do use XFCE as my desktop anyway, even with 18. But it's that I can't get the good version of OpenShot running. Also, Audacity's a bit crap on the later versions as well. So I'm using it mostly to get the old. Sorry.
No. No, just switch over to Kdenlive like I did, and Audacity is just fine.
Yeah?
Yeah, on 21 it is. 20 was iffy, but 21's just fine.
What about OpenShot?
Let it go. Let it go.
No, I'm not. I'm going to keep using my brilliant DVD of Mint 18 until somebody drags it out of my cold dead hand. Because it's just OpenShot's crap now. OpenShot version 2 onwards is just like a pile of poo. It's like someone put the fluffy edges of an Apple Mac app around OpenShot and thrown away all of the functionality at the same time. So it's just it looks pretty if you're interested in the Teletubbies, I suppose. But other than that, you can't do anything you could do with the old version. So that's what I say.
Gotcha.
Anyway, that was a bit of a diversion. So maths.
Yes, I know very little about statistics, but what little I do know is at your beck and call.
Good, because I think you know more than I do. I mean, I think I made that pretty clear in the video that my maths and stats knowledge is, well, my maths knowledge is shaky. My stats knowledge is virtually non-existent beyond me having to teach a bit of A level, that's like 16 to 18 level stats occasionally. So it's something I really don't like doing.
Well, the one thing I will say is that in traditional statistics, where you're looking at the standard deviation, the mean, the blah 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 blah, you have to start out with a random sample. Otherwise, what you find doesn't mean anything at all. You could be
Yeah,
the best mathematician in the world, but if your sample isn't random enough, what you will get will be strange. You will get three-headed people are normal on planet Earth because the stat says so, when you simply chose a really bad sample, which is why the serious statisticians will often rerun an entire experiment with a new sample just to make sure the first sample is showing them genuine results, meaning maybe it was random enough, maybe not. If we run it again and they get exactly the same thing, then we'll publish, but otherwise we won't. And I
yeah,
wonder if that had any bearing on this, because you don't need that. You don't need a random sample for other types of tests.
mm,
So I'm afraid I don't know the paper or papers that were published regarding all this. I probably should have tried to read them, but to be honest,
yeah. So have I. I mean, come on, we're both equally guilty in that, and I'm more guilty because I'm the one doing this series. So I should definitely be doing more research around the edges if I had the time. But yeah,
right, right.
there is an element of this randomized thing that you're talking about, but obviously he's going looking for specific things. But then if he's going looking for specific things, he needs to be more specific about those things. I think that was the issue here, is that he hadn't specified both inputs. So I'm putting rabbi names in. I expect to find these things. Let's see if that's statistically significant or if it's any more or less likely than this random list of things here. And I think that was the problem, that he may have been selective in the input data.
Yes, he's like every other human being who's ever walked the earth. They really wanted something to be true and held on to it after the evidence began to show it wasn't. You see it
Yeah.
everywhere and in all walks of life, in all ages, all genders. Just in our little corner of the universe with Doctor Who, how many times have we heard 80 missing episodes have been found and the BBC is going to make an announcement about it shortly? And no,
Nothing.
nothing. And Kiosk is in
I
the
know. I was
comments.
just
And
typing the hello to him.
yes, we need you here. We need you talking.
Yeah. He knows Hebrew apparently. I'm probably overstating it again here. He may know more
He knows
Hebrew.
more than we do. So
Yeah,
yes, if he knows the alphabet, he's well beyond us.
exactly. I mean, when he said there are some vowel sounds in Hebrew, it's like, oh my god, right? That's more information than I had before.
Well, Old Hebrew, I shouldn't say Old Hebrew, because there's Paleolithic Hebrew, which looks nothing like what we have now. But the Hebrew
Yeah.
that the Masoretic text was written in, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, it did not have any indication of the vowel signs, and those only begin to appear in the Middle Ages. Could be wrong. So
No,
Kiosk needs the link.
yeah, I just noticed it's not in. It's not. It should be a pinned message in this thing. Flipping heck. Okay, give me a second. Let me see if I can grab it from somewhere. No, don't do that. That was a silly thing.
So,
That.
but back to the documentary. Kind
Yeah,
of
keep
sadly,
talking.
the Michael Drosnin, whose book I read way back,
Mm-hmm.
he was right when he said, if someone can find this information in Moby Dick, then I'll realize that there's a problem.
Yeah.
And then someone did, and he said, no, that's not it. And
Mm.
that's also understandable. That's very human as well. But that to me would be the best control, which is you get a public domain book that you have an electronic copy of, and you of sufficient length, and you start running these tests, right?
Yeah.
In fact, one that's not public domain that I would use if I could would be Finnegan's Wake, because I bet you can find anything in there.
Sorry. Yes. Absolutely. Oh my goodness.
He's completely absorbed with his phone, folks, and no matter what I say, he's going to say yes, absolutely. It's
I'm
like, do you
trying
want
to
to burn?
do
You
what
want
I
to
was.
burn your house down today? Yes, absolutely. Okay,
I was trying
good,
to do what
good.
was
I'll get the
requested of
matches.
me. Bring up this flipping link in the thingy, which I obviously can't do because I'm very slow. I'm very slow, apparently. Oh, for goodness sake. Could you share it, please? Share it. Share it.
You know, it's interesting. Your subliminal feelings towards the phone were represented by the fact you had your middle finger stuck out there.
Oh, for
Oh,
goodness sake.
such a good scientific documentary followed by us just rambling.
Yeah.
But it's a good kind of rambling.
Mm-hmm.
That's my
Okay.
story, and I'm sticking to it.
Maybe this will work. Let's see. Such confidence, and maybe this will work.
See, here's the thing. If we were so confident of stuff, we would have a book out there that sold millions of copies telling people absolute rubbish. But instead, we're like,
that
well, I don't know if I know that or not, which means we're impoverished.
that is true. Oh, hello.
And
Oh,
that's my reason for being impoverished, and I'm going to stick to that story.
yeah. Oh, flipping heck! I can't do this on a phone.
It's in the
Hang on.
comment section. That's the right link.
No, it was the right link, but I'm now trying to pin it, which I'm now failing to do that. Oh, for goodness
Ah.
sake! Why will you not let me pin this? Let me pin it. Ah, pin message. Yes, success. So that's all the time old media guy had. Now
It is pretty much, but that's okay. I'm going to hang on till kiosk comes.
oh my goodness. So yeah. So tuning is one aspect. Of course, Drosnin was just basically doing whatever the hell he liked. He was like, I'll look for this name and then see if anything interesting pops up next to it. Which,
well, to his benefit, he sent all of his results to Dr. Rips and said, "Did I find something?" And Rips would say yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Drosnin's guilty of writing a book filled with some nonsense that made him $1 million, which, you know, if I'm going to make a mistake tomorrow, I kind of hope that's the one I make.
Oh, yeah.
But Rips was the one saying, no, you're good. And honestly, someone of that caliber, if he says you're good when you've sent him evidence suggesting purple-headed aliens are living in your backyard, you'd begin to believe it.
Yeah, Drosnin's Rips is not entirely innocent in this. No, I mean if he's staking his mathematical, they would keep saying scientific, but mathematical credentials on this, he better be bloody sure he's doing it right.
Yes, and the fact they showed him teaching either high-end linear algebra 1 or the basics of linear algebra 2 did not fill me with confidence, because I could be wrong, but if you're going to study high-end probability, you need real analysis. I mean, there's a book called Real Analysis and Probability where it looks at essentially Calc 4, the proofs about how calculus works through the lens of probability. So that's what I would expect him. I mean, if he was on the board doing real analysis, I'd say, yes, that's absolutely consistent with what I'd expect. But linear algebra, that kind of sounds like, if he's really this great mathematician and all the world would love him as a member of their faculty, and he's teaching linear algebra, there's some story going on there that I don't quite understand.
Well, I will play. I'm going to let the kiosk in a second, but that will involve me leaping towards the laptop again. But I'm going to play a defender of Rips for a second. One, he's getting on a bit, so he may be he may have even by that point wandered into the realm of emeritus professor, and emeritus professors don't get the best jobs. We had a very notable Professor Carr in our department who wrote the Hawking Carr paper of 74, which is one of the famous black hole papers. If I got this right, I may have got it wrong. But he was Hawking's student. He was well up there. But by this point, he's emeritus and he's been given the sweeping up jobs, basically. So it doesn't mean he's not a good professor or respected, but he might also be like on his pension. So they might not want to give him the most prestigious or most exciting jobs.
That's true. Someone with an intelligence of that level could teach that material half asleep and then get back to their real work. Yeah,
that is also true. That also often is also one of the reasons behind it. Also, he's not a statistician, so I wouldn't expect. Actually, I would expect him to be teaching algebra and stuff like that, because I think his group theory, is what his main research is essentially. And although this is out of my pay scale again, it's not what I want to deal with, but I think that's more his area. It's not stats and probability, is it really?
Yeah, group theory and stats, if there's a link there, I'm not aware of it. There could be, but it would be at a rather advanced level. It's not something the average grad student would come across.
Yeah,
but yes, someone who is doing group theory as their main work in life and are considered brilliant, teaching basic or even the second step of linear algebra would be a no-brainer for them.
I would hope so. Right, I'm going to try and let the kiosk in. Although
All right.
I fear for his life because he seems to be driving simultaneously.
Oh no! There's the kiosk.
Hello.
Hey
Hello. I tried getting on before and I had audio issues. I couldn't hear and it wouldn't pick up any of my sound.
Right, we can hear you now.
All right. I've got the cam off because I'm smoking a cigarette. I am not driving, by the way. I'm in my car because it's a little less.
Good.
So.
Phew. Okay. As long as you're not going to crash.
Yeah, we don't want you to.
Yeah, no. If you see me pop.
Oh no!
Sorry, that was wrong button. Wrong.
There
button.
you are.
There. If you see me do like this and like, that means somebody told me I have a run up and I'll make my leave and then, but it could be absolutely nothing for the next hour too. So.
Yeah, understood.
For right now, if you see me periodically pop off the camera, it's because I'm taking a toke off the cigarette or whatever. I don't want to mess with your channel. So.
Thank you very much.
Same rules as before.
Indeed.
So you're in Iowa, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, you're dressed like you're in Iowa because it's colder up there than it is down here in Texas.
Yeah, my thermometer on the car says 59 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lovely day though. I'm sorry.
What's that in real money?
Like Celsius?
Yeah.
Gotta look it up.
Oh my gosh, let me think.
I'll take Kelvin, but Celsius would be more normal.
15.
50. That's pretty. Yeah, that's not the warmest. That's not the warmest.
Is that what the? Okay. Yeah, I'm. Let the math guy do the math.
Yeah, the math guy pulled up an app because it's like, no, I'm not doing that in my head.
Right.
Learn the hard way not to do that.
And my phone, obviously, I can't cope with doing two things at once on my phone because then I just completely freak out, apparently.
All right, I'm going to get a cam for a second and get rid of the cigarette, and then we'll get down to talking.
Fair enough. Yeah, so I forgot what we were doing now. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, Drosnin does remind me a lot of Graham Hancock in many ways. It's just... I'm beginning to think there should be a new phrase: "Beware journalists bearing facts," because you've got Graham Hancock was a journalist, Drosnin was a journalist, and they both run with science and produce books with not very much of that in it, as far as I can see.
Well, you have to ask, who's made more money? A respectable historical biographer such as David McCullough or Graham Hancock? And I think we know the answer to that.
Yeah, I know.
And the fact is, the world has, for a long time, the world has been a place where if you tell interesting lies, you will get along farther and faster and higher than if you say, you know what, here's the truth.
Yeah. Do you know that? Do you remember the author Jeffrey Archer?
No.
Good. But he was a UK politician as well. And on the side, or maybe he was doing the politician thing on the side, and on the other hand, he was writing tons and tons of airport novels. You know, the kind of trashy spy adventure novels that were this thick and were sold in airports to anyone wandering through. And he made tons that way. I assume he also probably made tons as a Tory MP, but may or may not be relevant or true. But who knows? But it's just funny what you're saying about people whose profession revolves around making vast amounts of money out of fiction. I think he hit the nail on the head. Yeah,
we need to seriously consider teaming up to write something where we own the copyright and the rights to all the characters and see how much money we can make. Because, between the two of us, it could be kind of interesting. And if the kiosk throws some ideas in, well, there we are. We got a bestseller.
But
I might be your idea guy. I don't know.
That'd be awesome.
I tried writing something with some of the knowledge I have about 10 years ago, 10 or 12, and it's either, depending on if you know what it's talking about, too esoteric is what I'm getting at. You would either have no clue what you're reading and be like, wow, that looks interesting, it reads okay, but what is it? Or it's just the least interesting book ever written because I think the main character is mostly all powerful.
Well, see, that's why you need to do the Doctor Who approach, which is a young, naive companion asking, what is it, Doctor? What is it, Doctor?
Well, that was present. that was present. It was basically the main character was sort of a divine. I don't even want to say masculine per se, but then there was divine feminines following it around. It definitely influenced. Whatever it turned into, that was kind of my realization. Was like I'm writing Doctor Who and it's not even good.
What old media guy is suggesting is we all become L. Ron Hubbard again. I mean, he basically.
Yep. I was thinking of L. Ron Hubbard before this.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
That all goes back to what was being discussed at the beginning of this and in the chat on the Beyond the Horizon.
Mhm.
Because screw all of us for being honest. That's what it comes to.
Yeah.
I'm delivering pizzas for just a smidge under minimum wage because I can earn tip. I can get by. But yeah, if I wanted to just try and completely bushwhack people, then maybe. But I wouldn't feel good about it.
No, I
The
wouldn't.
thing that I always amazes me about L. Ron Hubbard is that he explicitly said before he made Scientology as a religion, the best way to get rich is to make a religion. Then he made a religion, and people joined it anyway. But he just said the thing just before.
Oh, there was a whole bunch of other stuff like that too. The whole psychotropics and antidepressants, psychiatric drugs being bad, but he was on psychedelic psychiatrics and like booze when he wrote his like space opera.
I wonder if it made it better or worse.
That kind of fits because you had Jerry
Probably
Falwell.
better. Probably better.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Probably did, yeah.
We seem to have gone way off topic though, because we
Oh,
were
we're
talking about
amazing.
the Bible code.
Oh, it's all related.
As always, indeed. So yeah,
I want to discuss the Finnegan's Wake code. When are we going to finally run some statistical tests on Finnegan's Wake and find the formula for the atomic bomb, huh?
Yeah, was that you saying that? Who said that?
I said it.
And you said that in the chat as well.
Yeah, well, you know, if you come up with something sufficiently sarcastic, repeat it, I say.
Yeah, and I like it too. I often hoover stuff out of the chat and redo it in the comments, but that's not the point. Yeah, so
you could theoretically scramble any given piece enough times to where you could find what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Which even Drosnin admits to, but he then says that his is somehow statistically more significant, but we now have to be kind of dubious about that because there's been no replication, which reminds me of something else that's more serious. Go on, you on me to go.
No, that's it exactly. At the time he wrote the Bible code, within just a 7-year period, he had a prediction of an assassination of a world leader. That's pretty interesting. Well, more than 20 years later, it hasn't been replicated.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Exactly, and yeah, no one has been able to. Sorry.
What was the first prediction correct? Was it? This is the one about Kennedy.
Yeah, no, that wasn't the Kennedy.
And so they found no other names and anybody else that's been necessary.
They can do that.
Predict one that hadn't already happened.
It was
the Rabin was the first actual prediction, quote unquote.
Yeah,
event.
He predicted he'd be assassinated, and then bang! A year later, he was. Is that so? How?
I mean, that's freaky,
Do I have to get?
It is a little bit. It is a little bit, but I mean, if you examine anything with Israeli politics, it's not surprising to see somebody get assassinated.
Was kind of where I was heading.
Sad but true.
Not a statement about any given people, religion, or anything else. It's simply an observation of political things over the years.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's
very
similar to that prediction
unstable.
of missiles. It wasn't even as specific as that, but the missiles landing on the 18th of January, I think it was. And it was like, yeah, but we're talking about Israel around the kicking off the first Gulf War. Yeah, stuff's going to be landing in Israel or blowing up or on fire in Israel on a fairly regular basis, particularly back then. It wasn't, Israel hasn't been peaceful for quite some time. And that was part of that period of not being peaceful because it's still not peaceful. As you know, anyone's watched.
Well, I think that particular rain of missiles was. This is going to sound like a bad pun. I don't mean it. It was particularly shattering to the public because they had a long period of peace because of the treaties with Yasser Arafat and so on. And they were really beginning to enjoy the fact they weren't a country under siege, and then bam, they got hit. So I think that was, that was part of it, the psychological shock, which we don't have just looking back over history, of course.
True. That's true. Very true. But my boring point. Wait, I had a boring point. It was very important. was that there's no glory in repeating experiments.
Yes, which is strange because you would think that someone out there in the scientific field would say, you know what, we are privileging new discoveries, quote unquote, to such an extent that people are faking their evidence about it, faking or making significant mistakes about a third of their time, according to some studies of journals. Perhaps we ought to have a journal for people replicating experiments and seeing what they find.
That's half the problem. I think there are journals that specialize in the checking, the repeats of experiments, but those journals are by definition not what we call high impact journals. They're not the ones that get you the most kudos for publishing your paper in it. So there are people out there who do this work, but they're not getting well represented. They're not getting a massive amount of academic reward for doing so. So yeah, it's
very sad.
It's very sad because we should have loads of people repeating stuff across the whole of academia. That's exactly what we need. But the journals that publish those things are not well regarded. I mean, they're not dismissed because they're doing repeat results, but they're not given as much worth in academia, and that means money as well. You get your stuff published in high impact journals so that your department will get paid money by the funding bodies. There's a lot of anti-scientific pressure on scientists to do work, to do certain work and not others. So no one's going to leap at doing repeats because there's not the money and the kudos there.
But I mean, in reality, the repetition of that is peer review by definition, right? So repeating experiments, regardless of the outcome, that should be, like you said, there's no glory in it. There should be.
Yeah.
Peer review is just the paper is at the level of the submission of the paper. So they'll send the paper that they've submitted out to other experts in the field, and they'll check there aren't mistakes in the paper, but they're not redoing the experiments.
Even though the experiment is meant to be repeitable.
Yeah,
if they follow the method.
In my own field, if it's something based upon Hubble, if it's something based upon the Planck satellite data, some of it will be still embargoed by the Planck team for a little while, so that not everyone will have access to it immediately, so they can't check it straight off. But even then, even if they can, people will assume that the Planck team, often people assume the Planck team, being a huge, massive scientists all working on it, will have had the best resources and will have got the best results they could out of their own data. That's not to say there isn't any checking and repetition going on. It's just not as prominent or as prevalent as it should be.
And then there's also the phenomenon of groupthink, where even if you say, our group is after the truth, the one guy or gal who says we're doing this all wrong is generally told to sit down and shut up. Yeah,
but they're saying that I experienced groupthink firsthand. I've seen that happen on Facebook a lot. In particularly when it comes to things like politics, people that were into the QAnon thing and whatever, that I was the one asking the questions, and they were like, yeah, but I don't know, maybe you're onto something. And then that one ended up being a limited hangout, which is basically where there were people that were pretending to be other random people in the group that were actually there on purpose. Their job was to guide the flock. And so they were enforcing groupthink. And so I've seen that as well. And I'm sure there's people somewhat like that in the scientific community as well. I mean, that's where you get like your 97% of scientists agree or whatever, and the experts say.
And then there's the hidden enforcers of groupthink, where if you say the wrong thing about the wrong theory, out you go.
Yeah. We saw it in the last video with Pachinski and his distribution of the gamma ray bursters, where he was saying, hey guys, this isn't distributed the way you thought it was. It's not all in the galactic plane, it's everywhere. And people were saying, nah, don't be daft, you haven't got enough data, it's just crazy, it's just you haven't been looking far enough or hard enough. And yeah, he was basically browbeaten into silence for a good few years until more data came out and it all chimed in with what he'd found, not what everyone else was saying. So yeah, it can happen in any field.
Yeah.
Hey, at least they didn't make him drink hemlock, though.
No, thankfully not. No.
There's actually some evidence, quote unquote, that Socrates killed himself, i.e., he provoked the judges into the death penalty because he was in his early 70s, his powers were failing, and he's like, well, if I'm going to go, might as well be now. But
Yeah, no, I mean,
I say evidence in quotes because there's no evidence beyond the text we have, and you
yeah,
can read it one way or read it the other, and so on.
but I mean, Plato wrote Defense of Socrates because there was no actual defense of Socrates, because he just refused to defend himself. He just sat there and allowed them to talk at him and just didn't do anything in return. So part of that.
Well, the big part was when it was actually the I'm losing the phrase. So you had the actual trial, guilty or not, and they said guilty, and then it became how should he be punished?
Yeah.
And he said, I should be set up for life in the gymnasium with free meals every day. That would be sufficient punishment. And
Yeah.
he actually got more votes for the death penalty than he did for being guilty, and because he was provoking people.
True. It was his entire life was to be provocative, so it kind of makes sense he should go out that way.
Yeah, and hopefully the death by hemlock wasn't too bad. The way it's described in Plato, it's not all that unpleasant if you're ready for it. But
that's got to be made from the seeds, because I've eaten the berries before. They're delicious.
I certainly haven't. I stay the hell away from them because I've heard they're.
Oh yeah, no, those were the shrubs out in front of my house when I was growing up, and they had the little red berries with the seed.
Me
and you
too.
pop the seed out. The berries are very sweet.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think seeds have arsenic in them or something.
Right, that makes sense.
We talk about me keeling over in the live stream. If the kiosk keels over in the live stream, that may also increase our viewing figures, but it's not really something we're aiming for here.
Oh no! This was when I was like, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old or something. Like, as a child, I would pick them and eat them, as long as you avoid the seed.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I need to go. So if someone dies in the live stream, let me know. I'll come back and...
I'll be happy. I could get struck by lightning, but.
Well, thank you for being with us, Old Media Guy. Again, we could never do this without you.
Well, you're very welcome, and I hope I added some small amount of good data to your live stream.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. See you, Kiosk. See you, Dr. Alex. See you, everyone.
Yeah.
The Old Media Guy.
And then there were 2. Yeah. So I think I haven't got as much to say about this one because it is a long way out of my wheelhouse, and the video did a really good job of highlighting the problems and issues. But what springs to your mind, Kiosk?
Well, first, let me turn my camera off. I was going to say something before doing. I'm going to turn off my camera for a second.
Sure.
On cognitive enhancer of my cigarette. What basically sprung to my mind with this? I mean, I've heard of this kind of thing before. I might have even seen this program before in the past.
Yeah.
But as far as I don't. Everything that popped into my mind when it came to this was more to do with my own studies into the esoteric, into the occult. The kind of patterns that I have seen in things, which I will say first off, are highly subjective. Everything to do with that is highly subjective. It's about the experience.
Yes. Hello, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. I had to light it. But the real things for me are like the biblical code of I know that the first 5 books of what we would refer to as the Old Testament, the first 5 books in English or Christendom would be called the Pentateuch.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Jewish faith is called the Torah. And so the Old Testament, as it were, is the entirety of the Bible for Jews. And so that then is called the Tanakh, and that is for the Taz for Torah, the Naz for the Navi'im, and the Ka is for the Ketuvim, I believe. And so you've got the law, you've got the prophets, and then you've got the lives of the people. And those are the 3 main segments of it. In the Torah, the first 5 books, they are written in Paleo Hebrew, which does not include any vowels. Modern Hebrew does.
So it was still true what I was saying about the text that they're talking about.
Yes. The Old Testament, so even Tanakh, TNK, there are no vowels in that. It's the understanding of Navi'im is the word for the N, and Torah is Ta. So it's a Tanakh. And the Ketuvim, they just use the if it's a consonant at the end. And I'm not an expert at this. I know what I know to be able to translate magic words, as it were, and Bible as well.
Yeah.
But so it works like that. And then there are other places where if there's a need for it, if there's an aleph put in there, it's there so that you know exactly how to pronounce it, no question. If there's a yod, no question. You might argue about whether the yod is an e sound or a yeh sound. You know, but and also the aleph in Hebrew is an sound. It's a schwa.
Yeah.
So if you're getting the hard a sound, that's the hey, the eh sound. And if you're getting an sound, that's either going to be, you can use the hey as a ha, or you can use the sound with the ayin, which is kind of an a. So that's the ayin. And then vowel being the UVW, you can kind of have an ow sound to that. Just depending on how it's used. But yeah, so in the Old Testament, it's written in Paleo Hebrew. Modern versions are notated with a bunch of sets of little dots around it. I don't know if you've seen that before.
No, I have not seen the text. So
okay, it's called Masoretic, Masoretic notation, and it's simply the rabbis when they learn their Torah, they have to memorize and write one out, and in writing it out, they also notate it with these Masoretic dots, which is annotated pronunciation.
So clues for the vowel sounds.
Yeah, it's like a highlighter of what color to tell you what vowel kind of thing or whatever, but it's dots. Oh, it really is ingenious. There's a real recognizable level of brilliance to everything to do with the Hebrew language, the Bible, the faith of it is very brilliant. There's a reason why the high intelligence is often a stereotypical attribution to Jewish people. Because their Bible, their part of it, and all of it is highly intelligent. You can just look at it and read some stories, or you can look deeper into how they constructed the words.
Yeah,
and it's deep like that as well. And that's the other thing that springs to mind is the real code of Hebrew is each of the letters of the words has a numerical value because the alphabet is also numbered. They don't have like Arabic numerals.
Yeah, they have a double purpose. They're also the numerical notes. Yeah.
So basically, hang on a second here. I will note, for the sake of safety and legality, there's a slight subterfuge in the smoking part. So the thing with each letter has a numerical value, so it's easier to memorize the alphabet by remembering the numbers.
Yeah.
So Aleph is 1, Beth is 2, Gimel is 3, etc. What that also comes to is like that tetragrammaton of Yod Hey Vav Hey.
Yeah.
Gematrix, if you take each of those as number and add them together, Yod is 10, Hey is 5, Vav is 6. There's 2 Heys. Your total is 26. That is literally where the attribution of the number 26 to God comes from.
Right. Oh, right.
So it's not like other legend. Like that's why. And there's also a 42-letter name of God. Just telling you.
Right.
It's 3 sets of 14-letter names that are like titles, but altogether there are 42-letter name of God. There's a 216-letter name of God. I'm not sure what other ones, and they're most of them are either like the tetragrammaton would be explicitly okay. It's not actually explicitly written in the Hebrew version of the Bible.
Yeah.
Or if they use that, or they will say Hashem, which means the name. And so then if you ever notice where there's any instance of a person that is of Jewish faith or Hebrew descent, when they refer to God in writing, it will be capital G-D. They won't even write the whole word. So the actual appearance, because these names and divine words with alternate pronunciations, etc., numerical things to them, the I guess you could call it the lore would be that they're like magic words or names of God have power kind of thing. So if you speak them or write them, it's, so as kind of an aside and a similar thing and a little bit of irony, I was sitting reading from the Silmarillion before your show came on earlier.
Right. Okay.
And I was reading the what was the second one? It's got Quenta in the name. Valaquenta.
about 30 years ago.
Okay, well, basically the story is about, like, the first one is the song, the legend of it sounds to me like the Legend of Zelda's How the World Was Made of Hyrule was very similar, that there's, you know, the god appeared and sent the song in motion, etc. But anyways, then they're like, in the second book, it's like, and Melkor was never spoken of again, and then the book proceeds to name him at least twice in every single paragraph.
Right.
But you really don't mention, like, if you're trying to incant, when I say that there is some magic that is real, and a lot of it has to do with things like incantations of certain words of power or god names, there are ones that are legitimate. You can manifest something. I don't know if it's what you wanted, but you know, or get the attention of a higher power, if nothing else.
One of the things I liked about this, and I liked about Old Media Guy raising it, was that this documentary was not having a go at whatever magical or mystical beliefs you have in the Torah or the Bible, and it wasn't saying you can't go looking for all these codes and things and getting meaning from them. The only point of this video was saying you can't say that there was a statistical or scientific weight you can add to this. That's all its only purpose was. It's not saying you're an idiot if you believe in the Torah, you're an idiot if you believe in the Bible, you're an idiot if you believe in these codes and what they tell you. Well, you know, I would personally say there's a lot to say from surely the Bible and the Torah just from the surface text or what the text says, and there's enough to interpret from that too. But they're not saying you can't do the other things, and then you can make as many different meanings and messages as you can find in the text. The only thing you can't say, and the only thing they would be strong enough to say you can't say, is you can't say this is scientifically grounded. That's where it becomes you've overstepped the line. Well,
and I was waiting at a stoplight to get to the parts store I had to get coolant for my car. And I was waiting on the light, and I was listening to the very tail end of the presentation, and I wanted to say something and I couldn't. I was not going to type into the chat while I'm driving. But basically at the end of it, where they were like, and he's still trying to get word through to President Bush. I'm assuming they were talking about Herbert Walker Bush, or was this post 9/11 that was made?
Yeah, it would be Bush Jr.
Okay, but to be like, I'm trying to, and I think I said out loud was something to the effect of, you're claiming to use the word of God to predict a thing, and your urgent need is to go contact one of the agents of the many-headed beast and let him know. Like, come on.
What?
Come on, that's not who you need to talk to.
I mean, would Drosnin have seen him as that?
I don't think he was looking at it like that. And there's a few places where they talk about things that are using something that is of God without God. And it's kind of the same thing as the words of power and God names and whatever. If you're really not in a position to be using it, and it's ultimately vain, and you got it's not just a dabble. It's like you're wish for a lottery ticket or some crap.
But where are you getting the Bush is the many-headed beast anyway? I mean, what was?
Oh, it's my personal interpretation of Revelation.
Revelation. Okay, right.
The city on the hill, but there are multiple hills. There are that puts DC and other world leader capitals. It's not just America. You could take this archetypal template and put it on a lot of countries.
Sounds like yes, but go on.
They talk about many kings in succession, one of whom was like stricken and then allowed to finish his time. To me, this is like, it would be, and I've had some weird, I don't have time to go into it. I'll just suffice to say I've had what I call visions, what I would consider these somewhat premonitory or post-monitory even dream experiences and things that have given me insight. Mm-hmm. Things like when I read, so for context, I've read through the description of Ezekiel's chariot of fire, and it sounds to me like a figure of a man seated on a throne. And keep in mind, I'm in a car with a wheel directly in front of me.
Yeah.
Four, angels on the four sides. It's like that's a dude driving a 4-cylinder automobile is what this guy had a vision of, completely without context, 6,000 years ago or whatever, And so then, like, there's other things in the Revelation that are like that, because my understanding of the book of Revelation is the guy was really high on psilocybin mushrooms when it was written. And I've tried mushrooms and read that book just to see if there was something to it, and there kind of seems to be, at least subjectively speaking. But part of my interpretation of it is that these hills represent countries. The repetition of this beast theme, because there's a beast person, there's a dragon, and then there's 2 or 3, depending on how you look at it, 7-headed, 10-horned things, each of which is like an echo of another. And so it could be generations of, it's like a vision describing archetypes without being like, without using the word or the concept defined.
Right.
So what I see in it is kind of the multiple kings and the guy having his time and then being allowed to finish or whatever. It's like presidents being elected, world leaders elected democratically, which in the time of that writing, I think Greece might have kind of fiddled with that a bit. Rome supposedly had that kind of democracy, but it seemed like that always ended up turning into emperors. So it's kind of an almost ironic, but without context view of what we're going through. And if it's not a legit vision of it, it just means that what's happening now in our world and the way that everything is set up and being done is just another echo of the same kind of thing. It doesn't require for me that it is a divine thing, just that it seems to be an accurate view, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, you're describing your own spiritual interpretation of events, are you not?
Yeah. And I don't take that. Well, I do kind of feel like there was something definitely bordering on a concept of a mark of a beast here recently in the world. In that, beasts are branded, they're tagged, they're tracked. They have animals in the wild that they follow with little radio chips and stuff too. But it's not just the chip, it's the idea of what's talked about in Revelation is those who refuse to join the cult or swear allegiance to the Antichrist basically get cut out of the economy and the ability to participate in making a living, which obviously something very like that has just recently been unfolding. It's maybe still trying to unfold. I don't know. I personally, the job I'm working now is the third job because I had a gas station for like a little bit since the spring of 2021, where I was stuck out at my house with a vehicle that wouldn't run for 4 months, where nobody would hire me because I wouldn't take a shot and I wouldn't wear a mask. Because I looked into the papers enough and read enough of the statistics, the data, figured out what the mortality numbers and other such. Like I dove deep into it. So I'm not a statistician, but I know how to run numbers. And I was like, this does not threaten me, and they won't let me go about my business. I've had to deal with that personally, that I didn't get in line with this lie. Well, what's the Antichrist? He's a great deceiver. I'm not saying any given person is that. I'm saying it's the same archetypal repetition of negative pattern, I guess.
And on that bombshell, I'm going to have to do the old media guy thing, because he's not here, and say, hey, we're getting to the top of the hour. Isn't it about time we wound things up? That's my old media guy impression.
I would just say, as far as to get back to your original question about what struck me from this documentary, my experiences with these kind of things, spirituality, finding God, whatever. I have an acreage on my property. If you, my YouTube name is also a channel. I've got videos of my woods and stuff. And for me, I can go into the woods, I can find God, I'll go meet God from time to time. I'm not talking to a dude. I'm not talking to a voice. I just, you find it. And maybe that's not even actually God, but I'm not going to argue. It's what it feels like. And it's a oneness, a connectedness to everything. And it's the reminder of why life is worth living and all those kind of things too. Yeah. But the absence of that with the same structure is like going through motions or whatever. What he's doing mathematically is going through motions, trying to scientifically prove something I don't think he really believes in. And if he really believed in it, he'd understand that this is a force that, if it theoretically wanted to, could evade detection or simply be so embedded and pervasive that most people take it as part of, it's like cosmic microwave background could be like of God, we don't know. Yeah. That's what that struck me as, is that there's things that you'll never be able to prove subjectively and say, yeah, I've done this, 35 times. It's worked 35 times. It's real. It's real for me. It could be, and I don't actively cast magic. I've got good luck rings, but
yeah. But I mean, the difference is, the real for you, recognizing real for you is not the same as scientifically proven is kind of important.
Yeah. Well, and because that goes back to the experience of the last several years too. Well, the things that have been coming out about, what they did or didn't test for before putting everything out, on top of the idea of, like I said, that mark of the beast concept, the if you don't participate in what we're telling you, you have to do and align to this, then you're going to have a real hard time feeding yourself. I just lost my own train of thought there. It just basically is, the idea that there was extant science in that situation. That was what I was getting at. There was extant science. The current consensus, having had a chance to really dig in, kind of still lines up with the previous extant science, except the previous extant science was basically a meta-analysis by a bunch of dental students trying to figure out the efficacy of a device that they couldn't get a straight answer from any of their educators on why we actually wear these other than it's a tradition. And I'm sorry? Yeah, there was a meta-analysis a couple years before, long before the pandemic or anything, where there were a bunch of dental students that were like, we just want to know and nobody will fund a study, so here's our meta-analysis of all existing data. And they were like, it seems like it's more of a drool protector for in surgery. That was the conclusion, basically. And so, and then there's the Vietnam study. The Vietnam study had a small sample but predated it, and the larger sample after the fact still kind of lines up with it.
I mean, the masks were never to protect you; they're always to protect other people. That's the point.
But it doesn't stop the pass-throughs on the types of masks, the inappropriate wearage, etc. Because people can't. There was a study done on people's inability to follow instructions correctly.
Yeah, that's also true.
Like it's so I think we understand all the same things. We've probably seen most of it. My conclusion from it is that you had a ton of people that and an idea that was like they're trying to prove something that they maybe don't necessarily fully believe in, through a biased type of science and certainly a lot of informal fallacies, appeals to authority, etc., as well as reductio ad hilarum for anybody who disagreed.
Yeah,
but that just that's when I talk about my worldview and my desire to understand things a little bit better and everything. It's because I'm seeing insanity like that, trying not to let it get to me. Also having the opportunity to go step out in the woods and meet the divine. And try and reconcile those things,
So the one thing I would leave here before we sign off is don't despair entirely with the usefulness of science when it is done
with the what?
Properly. Don't despair entirely of the usefulness of science when it's done properly.
Oh no,
rigorously.
No, I'm a very pro science, but when I got into an argument where people would call me anti-science, I'm like, no. I am anti-bad science. I am pro-good science. I will, before getting into the data, before getting into the conclusions, I will look at their methods, make sure that they actually check the bias. If this has 5 people said that they had these results. Okay, that's effective. 5 anecdotes. There's no control. There's no randomness.
Yeah,
we discussed that on previous ones too.
Exactly. You should always be wary.
Like I said, it's all connected. It's the idea of we have a better worldview when we're self-honest.
Small numbers in medical trials are one of the most scary and obviously wrong things to do. That you can
and that goes back to the data pool or the sample size kind of thing.
Indeed. Right. Yeah. On that note, I'm going to have to call it a night. But thank you for coming to the kiosk.
Hey, what time is it for you right now?
Here it's oh god, I can't even see anymore. It's about 9:10. So
9:10. Fabulous. It is. I've got about the same past 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's great. I love it.
Brilliant. Okay.
I love it.
Note, I'm going to end the stream, but that means I'm going to leap towards the camera. But thank you for coming. Again, couldn't have done it without you.
Peace. See you later.
Everyone else, thank you for being here.